Itagat kwa jina pale nchini Talcocast TV. Wega maono na basa kuna mbili handa witawaria kima ngara ngara kada nchi tinyiga panda tai ngara kada nchi bottom up economic model. Those paisi itano kimita ngabata finance expert consultant na ngara consultant na ngata ndetene libo studio na Cast TV. Mr. Jacob Mahaga nende ko kigo ito liba studio ago magbiti ngala le Betutab Rani usingongi la to sune ago wendi itano alaga bottom up economic model tingdina no sabe munde ba kawaida aitinye biashara na mingi nenyana samis biashara na tan mingi nenyana itinye tugen aitinye ba isoni karanje ba mongaret en kasarta ga tugul yega wit serikali tunatanelele nguni na tanne ba Kenya Kwanza mo ana tele chege ta ba bottom up economic model to spice itano imitan go bata tan go Jacob Mahaga. Karibu sana abana Jacob, good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Siku mingi and interestingly Kenya today ongelelea the last time exactly what we are seeing the new government wanajaribu implement. What we discussed about subsidies, what we discussed on production, especially food production, value addition, tumeona imekuwa kama mnara sasa. They want to focus and to implement just that. So it's a pleasure to have you, Jacob. Maybe you can just say hi to our viewers so that we start off.
Good evening, everyone, from wherever you are watching around the world. It's my pleasure to be here to continue with the conversation that we had started about a variety of subjects. But today we go to demystifying this and
demystify now.
Yeah,
we make it, for that person to understand.
To understand.
Back at home, yeah.
So that we remove the campaign. The campaigns are over, so now we focus on the real. Exactly.
The campaign now is behind us.
Yeah.
So maybe just to start off, Jacob, as an expert, I want to talk about the bottom up.
Right.
We had the two versions, or we've heard about the trickle-down effect, and then the bottom up. What is the difference between the two, so that for someone who might need just to get the background and get to understand?
So the bottom-up economic model really became popular during President Obama's campaign. It is the same framework,
same concept, yeah.
Same concept that President Ruto's campaign took, right? So now we had Obamanomics, now we have Rutonomics.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same thing. But really what it all means is we are starting to build the economy from the bottom coming up. So we are helping people in the agricultural sector, the small, medium farmers, because in Kenya really we have very few large-scale farmers. Then we are helping the SMEs, and what happens is, you see, when we have water in the sea, all boat rises, right? But for trickle down, is you pour water through a funnel, then it comes out. So the person who is at the bottom, they'll get small drops. But from the person who is for bottom-up economy, we built it from the bottom, and then everybody benefits almost at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there are quite a number of things that come into play. The biggest obstacle to grow an economy is capital. And that is where the models really diverge. In the trickle-down economic model, that is a model that people like, in the United States, is the Republicans who focus on that. People like Donald Trump, they say, or they believe, that the wealthy should create the jobs for the poor. And has it worked in some cases, in some industries? Yes. Most industries, absolutely no. But when you have everybody being able to come up with their ingenuity, however small it is, then it raises everybody. Now, if you look at, for instance, a small-scale farmer, they produce maize, or they produce coffee, or whatever they produce. They make a small profit. However small it is, it contributes to the bigger cake. Right?
Yeah.
So if we were going to duplicate that or increase their efficiencies, they will be producing more, and hence they'll be earning more money in terms of percentages. We can say a person who earns, maybe they earn 100 million shillings, but they've invested $1 billion, is making more money than a farmer who has invested 1,000 shillings and they are earning 2,000.
2,000, yeah.
Yeah? So we have to look at percentages, not the amount of money that is there. Yeah.
So looking at the percentages, vis-a-vis the amount of money.
The amount of money.
The amount of money.
Then you can have a proper argument. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe just to still ask ourselves where we are right now in terms of the economy. We say, we saw some politicians saying, you know, the economy is in ICU, it's bleeding in ICU. Shortly they say, oh, the economy is dead. They said we only found 97 million in the national treasury. So, like, what is the disconnect? Where did we go wrong? Is it the policies of the previous government that was in place? Perhaps maybe they did, or they invested more in the long-term projects whereby you'll not be able to realize the returns within a short period of time. Or what really led to where we are right now, talking about, you know, the economy is just down?
There are quite a number of issues that we have as a country in terms of prioritizing our projects and what we want to do. And there are things that we do, I don't understand if it's to make money for ourselves or if it's to build the country. There are infrastructure projects that are not appropriate at this particular time. And we don't prioritize to look at which corridors bring the most revenue. We have been talking about the Mombasa Highway for years. And that is where 90% of all the goods that are transported within this region, East African region, pass through. But look at it, it's a 2-lane highway, right? So it affects the economy. But then we have the Nairobi Expressway. Yes, it might look like a very good thing, but for me, I was like, if we could have added 2 lanes on the previous existing road, we could have achieved almost the same thing at a lesser cost.
Yes.
But all in all, it's been built, it's there with us, right? So the priorities were mixed up. And then we had the campaign period. And we were subsidizing consumption. What you're eating. If you're subsidizing consumption, that means you're buying it from someone else, and basically you are paying them to sell it to you, right? So our consumption, for instance, during the political campaign, we lowered the price of maize meal, right? Unga was lowered to 99. Where did it go right after that? It went back to the normal prices. And because markets work. Now, what does this price today show us? That our farmers should produce and sell to this market. Even if they were to sell to 150 shillings per 2 kg, people will still buy. Yeah? So the priorities from the previous government, some of them were good, some of them were bad, right? In the long run, 10 years or 20 years down the line, we want to sit back and say, okay, this project, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't at the appropriate time. So what should the current government focus in? I think they've started at a right place. You remember?
Maybe so that we come back to that on where is the government starting from. For someone to understand, is there a problem subsidizing when you consume? Consumption vis-a-vis production? Because people will look at it and be like, why don't we subsidize so that I should be in a position to have a packet of hunger on my table for my kids, you know? So why should we say we do away with subsidizing what we consume and majorly focus on production?
Production. Yeah. So this is what happens in an inherent market. The production of, specifically, let's talk about maize in Kenya right now. If the farmers right now are producing 10 bags an acre because of the high cost of fertilizer, what does that mean? We're going to have less maize. When we have less maize, what happens? The prices go up, right? Just like they are right now, right? So what we should focus in, because the price of subsidizing unga was about 64 billion every month, right? Yeah. So you multiply that by 4, you are hitting close to 250 billion, right? Yeah. Let's talk about if we are to lower the prices of fertilizer, right? We lower that. If we've lowered it, it has been lowered by half, right? Half. Yeah. The farmers get access to cheap fertilizer. Instead of producing 10 bags of maize, all of a sudden, they can produce between 20 and 25 bags of maize. Okay? Yeah. What will that mean? You've produced twice, and the cost of fertilizer, maybe, I think, the entire country, it's 1.4 million bags, right? Bags, yeah. At 3,000, that one will be about close to 9 billion, somewhere there. Imagine, between 9 billion and 64 billion, which one would you rather have? I'd rather you spend 9 billion, and then the other part is, I'll have a long-term solution. What the subsidies for maize was very specific. It was during the campaign period. Let's be genuine. It's that, and that's all that it was. After that, the day the elections were over, that subsidy went away. Yeah. We said we couldn't afford it, right?
So it was actually for wooing the voters.
That is what it is, right? But when we subsidize our farmers, we are producing food for our national granary, which will be long-term. As a country, we should look ourselves clearly in the mirror and say, are we producing enough, or are we producing what we eat? And the markets tell us very clearly, if we can't do that, then a hungry nation is an angry nation.
And angry people.
And angry people, right?
Who can produce.
You can produce. Yeah. And when you feed people, when watu wakiwa wameshiba, right? Shamba. Wameshiba. Wataenda sokoni, watafanya kazi, we become more productive. Right now we are starting to see the effect of hunger in northeastern region, and it's becoming worrisome. About 4 million people will have food deficiencies in the next couple of months. But we can solve that problem just by buying from a foreign country. We have to make sure to jitegeme. Look at what happened from Ukraine and the way it affected us. Everyone. So when we produce local, let's give access to fertilizer to our farmers. Let the government now take the responsibility of coming up with efficient loans for them, the way we had, it was previously Agriculture Finance Corporation. They should strengthen those institutions and make sure that our farmers have access to cheap financing for production. and then I believe we'll be doing well. Yeah.
Absolutely, we'll be doing well. So where is the government supposed to start? It's the starting point. I know right now that they maybe focus on setting up the executive,
Yes.
then they now pick from there. But what do you think should be the first priority in terms of production? You've seen the fertilizer, okay?
Yes.
But what else so that we'll be able to make a step forward? We'd like to see a reduction in the palm price. You see, right now it's about 179
Yes.
per liter.
Per liter.
Yeah, in Nairobi.
Right.
In some different places around even 180 plus, And as we know, fuel is that's a global product.
Yes.
Yeah, like when we talk about the fuel, it's a result of the war in Russia and Ukraine in terms of gas. And what is the right step for the approach? Because you see, when fuel goes up, it's directly proportional. The prices goes up as well.
Inflation goes up.
Inflation goes up.
So I think the government has started in the right place. To remove the subsidies. That is the first thing, right? And this is something economists want to debate all day long. But the effects are pretty clear, right? When you remove the subsidies, the price will go up, but in the short term. The subsidy doesn't mean that you are not spending money. You are actually spending money. You are taxing someone to spend money. But me and you, we have cars. We drive, right? Should our grandmothers back in the village pay for our fuel?
No.
But they do. But they do. Every time they purchase something they have VAT.
Yeah, the VAT.
Right? Where does that VAT? Instead of using it back for development, we are giving it now to people like us who can afford driving. Right? Now, are there other industries that are affected by this? There are people who take matatus and so on. So it can be targeted.
Yep.
We say we are going to subsidize diesel, but we're not going to subsidize petrol because most of our transportation is pegged on diesel. Now you are doing that intelligently. It's affecting particular sectors of the economy. On the other hand, when you remove these subsidies, now you have money to concentrate on development. And what kind of development do we want? About 80% of this country, we derive part of our income from agriculture. So we go back to agriculture. We make sure that is stable. There is no country in the world which has developed without having a strong agricultural system. United States, Britain, we talk of even the Japanese, the Russians, everyone have a strong agricultural system. Once we have that base taken care of, we can look into other sectors and make sure we move forward. Then the other part that the government should focus on is access to capital, right? And how do we formulate that? There are quite a number of areas. In terms of access to capital, it's making sure that we have mechanisms that enable you to get low interest rate loans or innovative financing mechanisms. There was a bill last year. It was not a bill. Some regulations were being passed for crowdfunding, right? The government right now should make sure that those regulations are in place so that our farmers, we can even crowdfund for farmers. And people in the diaspora will gladly say, I want to finance a farmer in Eldoret because they have maize in National Cereals and Produce Board, and that is security enough for me, and I'm going to give them a loan for them to adjust through to go into the next planting season instead of selling their maize at a loss. We want to finance the medium and small SMEs for them to get a low cost of, to lower their cost of production or to be able to buy more input and increase production so that they can also sell their produce at a lower price. If you look at our dairy sector, we have about, I think, close to 2 million cows or something like that, right? If we were to increase the amount of milk they produce each by 1 liter, how much will that be? It's a significant increase. If we have that significant increase, the prices go down, and we are able to get cheap food for ourselves, and we can be able to export. Yeah,
we'll be able to make an export.
Yeah. So the other part, I think, you heard the president saying, right now Kenyans save 200 shillings, and there is a debate that we should not lower or we should not increase our contribution to the national social security fund system. I think it's very true. 200 shillings will not make you retire comfortably. On the other hand, we have to be cognizant as well. The National Social Security Fund has been used as a pet, as a handbag for few people to profit from. And it is not performing the functions that it's supposed to do. What the government should come up and say, yes, we can increase the funding that goes in there. 2% can be managed by the trustees who are there. The other amount, let it be self-managed. So me as an individual contributing, I can choose the advisor who is going to invest my money within the NSSF. So that it's not a single person who's been a trustee or a few people who've been trustees for 30 years. My friend, even if you're a CEO for 30 years, you don't have new ideas. We need new people to come in.
Fresh blood.
Exactly. We need new people to come into that. And we should have provision in the law that states very clearly you cannot be appointed a trustee for National Social Security Fund or any institution, government institution, beyond a particular term. Otherwise, why are you in there for that long?
Someone will be there, like from time to time, given, 5 years, 10, 15.
Absolutely.
You still find the same names. So in terms of agriculture, I know in Kenya we say we have a good weather.
Yes.
We have the favorable conditions. What should be done so that we hasten the process of value addition in our agricultural products? Because you see, Jacob, if we export in raw form,
yes,
we get less.
We get less, definitely.
But if we have the final product, the processed or the value added, the value addition done on our products, we fetch $1 on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So which areas do you think should be focused in terms of food production and value addition?
So in terms of, let's talk of just value addition.
Yeah.
The first place that we can look at, if we go back a few years ago, in Kenya, we used to produce about 140,000 tons, 140,000 metric tons of coffee. Right? Right now, we are at 40,000 and they are below, depending on the production period. If we go back to that increase, it's going to be good. But most importantly, right now we have the opportunity to start exporting already finished products to countries like the United States, Germany, and so on. For instance, when you talk about coffee, when you export 1 kilo of coffee, 1 kilo of coffee here locally, a farmer will be paid about 90 shillings.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, 90 shillings, right? But the same kilo of coffee when it's roasted, right? When it's roasted and it's sold in a supermarket in Britain, in London, or even in Washington, D.C., guess what? That same single cup of, kilo of coffee will be close to about 4,000
yeah.
shillings.
About, yeah.
That's a very, very big difference. If our farmers, even if we include transportation, they just get half of 4,000, that's 2,000 shillings. They will be generating maybe close to about 10 times as much as they would.
Yeah, they want.
And that is what we will want. So value addition. Then we have to go back to other crops. For instance, you remember Kenya used to produce 90% of the world pyrethrum. What do we produce now? Nothing. Nothing. It's a shame that we can't look into such crops and start production, because right now a lot of people are using natural organic products. So pyrethrum is in high demand. So if we put our money in that sector, and we already have the infrastructure, we know we're going to reap the benefit. In terms of overall production for our food crops, as Africans, we should realize we had some of the best food practices for a very long time. Remember the granaries? Every home had a granary. Yeah. And the granaries used to be almost full all the time.
Yeah, all the time. We had food, sufficient food.
And I remember we used to come from Machakos, go all the way to the village. And what will we come back with? Bags of maize. Yeah? Why? At that time, the production was high. Why? Remember we had subsidies for fertilizer, right? And when we talk about subsidies, people should not say it's a bad thing. It should be focused, right? The Americans do it, the British do it, every developed nation does it, right? But it's very focused to particular areas that it affects production. So if we increase our production, for instance, maize, it will be great. If we get the Galana project up and running, then yes, we're going to increase a little bit of production. Then we don't depend on imports so much. When we don't depend on imports, especially things that we consume, guess what? We're not buying things in foreign currency. So what happens? Our Kenya shilling will appreciate. When it appreciates, now we can be able to buy things that we really don't produce locally, for instance, petrol, at a lower price.
So automatically it will come down.
Automatically it comes down. Because right now the Kenya shilling, right before the election, was about 123. Right now it's hovering at about 118. That's already a 1%, close to 2% down. So what does that mean? The next time that we are going to be importing fuel, it's going to come down a small percentage. Yeah. So if we take our shilling back to about 80 shillings to the dollar, what will happen? The prices of gas, petrol, are all going to come down because now our shilling is able to buy more. Yeah.
So we can buy more.
With less.
With less. Yeah, that is in terms of, if we look on those other factors. And Jacob, do you think we'll have a turnaround? And how long might it take? Because you see, people could just want, like, this is happening today, tomorrow we should see results. You know, how long for all these plans, if it is value addition, if it is subsidizing or whichever way, we have the fuel down, you know, we have the Kenya power down.
Yes.
You see the units nowadays
they have decreased.
Reason? You talk about the fuel, yeah, because of the high cost of fuel. So how long will, as an expert, do you think this is like brooding now? So how long will it take for us to realize?
You've used the right word, brooding. It's going to take a minimum to start seeing good effect, 3 months to 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
That is when we are going to start feeling the
You
effect.
feel it, yeah.
Yes. In the meantime, let's all tighten our belts. Let's drive less for those who have to drive. Let's plan in advance and let's save. Okay? 3 months to 6 months at minimum. After that, because there are several things that are going to be cascading. The Kenya shilling is going to be gaining value, right? Slowly. And that will have an effect on what we import at what price. Then the next thing is, I think in the next 3 months, the production of the current crop of maize will start hitting the market. That will be lowering the price of our food, right? Then thereafter, we have to start strategically thinking of the long-term plan, what has to be done. In terms of things like production and value addition, we cannot say that we are starting a factory today. Those have to be planned. The thing that the government is supposed to do is to create a conducive environment. And what will that mean? It means in terms of regulations and licensing, and second, access to capital. If you look at the government also came up with the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Corporation, right, to lower the cost of financing homes. When they come in, when the organization raised a couple of billions several months ago, right? When it's deploying those funds, what does that mean? It means people are able to buy homes at a lower price. Then the contractors who build those homes now have liquid cash to build new ones at lower cost. I hope we increase the funding to the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Corporation, right? That is one. It will increase the availability of homes, hence the construction industry will kickstart. Now, that will take a little bit of time, maybe from 9 months onwards, right? But once it starts, that is a catalyst for growth in particular areas. Because when a person buys a home, what do they buy next? They buy furniture, they buy TV sets and they buy other things. And sometimes you want to buy a nice car to be in front of that house that you want to exactly. We all have to be seen. Then there are other sectors that we really have to look at. You see, as a country, we have a significant part of our population which is in the informal sector. The border riders, the young men and women who are shoe shiners and so on. How are we going to improve on their access to financing? Because for a border rider right now, they pay anywhere between, I think, 400 to 500, is it a day for those who are not even purchasing, leasing the motorbike, right? On top of that, they have to deal with the county council, being chased around and so on. And what do they have to do? If they are caught, they have to pay for fines and so on. We have to create a conducive environment for them and make sure they are well regulated. Some of this started with the previous government. We have to enhance and improve on that, not start new things, right? On the other hand, our expenditures have to be targeted. We cannot build roads to nowhere, railroads to nowhere, and so on. Absolutely not.
So that'll be like a long-term thing.
It's a long-term thing that can be done in the short term. For any expenditure for government, we should have it planned and approved by Parliament, not from Treasury. It should be planned and approved from Parliament, because in Parliament, that is where all of us, everyone is represented. But if it's done by the Treasury, that will be an executive order. And
so in terms of, Jacob, what we touched earlier on about the Russia-Ukraine war, in terms of business and in terms of foreign policies, are we seeing probably maybe coming to an end? Because you'll find there is an excuse. Everything goes back to Russia, Ukraine. I met someone who'd been selling me milk, and the 5 liter. Earlier on, used to sell at 500 shillings. 5 liter, the fermented milk.
Right.
And then now on the next order, it's talking about 750. I was like, "What's up?" They're like, the Ukraine was.
It's affecting.
Like, but you get it milk here, locally. So you see, everyone talk about the Russia-Ukraine thing.
I think the Russia-Ukraine war had a significant impact. And more so, it came when a time when we had just come from the COVID pandemic. And production, like for instance, for oil was not up to par. By the time, right now the war is almost coming to an end. War is funny. You can't fight forever. You can't fight forever. And the war that they have, I think it's a war of ideologies. So, and right now Russia has felt the pinch of what it started. So it's going to come to an end. But as we talk about that, when we talk about the price of diesel to a farmer, it's not the only thing that affects that. There
it's a long chain.
It's a long chain. So
a ripple effect.
It has a ripple effect. And we also have to look carefully, what has this war really taught us? It has told us very clearly, you can't depend food coming from a foreign country. You have to be self-sufficient. For right now, Africa itself, I mean, Ukraine is a very tiny country. It's, I think, Kenya maybe and Uganda put together, but it's feeding the whole continent. It's feeding Ethiopia, it's feeding Djibouti, Kenya, Zambia, Zimbabwe. I mean, it's a shame. And you saw the turnaround in Ethiopia. Because of that war, they've cultivated now, I think they're going to be producing 1.4 million metric tons of wheat within their country. We should be emulating that. And as a country, we should be looking at increasing the production. But any time that we have external shocks and our food prices rise, what does that do? It also hampers our development. Yeah? Then the other thing that we haven't talked about, and overall, is also managing our debt situation. You see, most of Kenyan debt, a significant amount is in US dollars. USD. So what it means is, how do we pay our debt? We collect our taxes. How do we collect our taxes? It's in Kenya shillings. right? When we collect our taxes in Kenya shillings, then we buy dollars, then we send them abroad. So we have to spend more dollars and so on. We should come up as a nation, and the diaspora is there. But I think the Ministry of Finance, Treasury, and the central bank have been sleeping on the wheel on tapping into the diaspora resources. The diaspora do not just want to send money for medical treatment, parties, and paying for dowry and so on. They want to contribute more. But they have to be given avenues for that. And the national government right now, it's a very easy process. They should take a Kenyan government bond specifically targeted to the diaspora, and it's floated in the United States. The registration costs less than even $100,000, and the diaspora can buy it directly there. They don't have to send money here. Right? What will that do? All of a sudden, it will bring in the dollars that we need. It will lower our, the currency, our Kenyan currency, the shilling will gain value. That is what the Jews do, the Israelis. That's what they do. Israel does not grow because it's a great nation. It grows because of its great diaspora, period.
Oh, wow, the great diaspora. I just see, Jacob, when you look about the five tigers, you know, like when you look at Kenya and actually the Eastern Tigers,
right?
Kenya was ahead in 80s, 90s, but you see now they have overtaken us.
Yes.
So sometimes I think policies also plays a role in terms of shaping a country, economy, and development.
It plays a very big role. If you remember, it is funny. The Koreans are some of the guys who are bidding to build the Nairobi-Mombasa highway, right? I think, if I'm not wrong, it's in 1967 or somewhere there, Kenya, I believe, lent or sent aid to Korea, right? Now, what are we getting? It has turned the other way around. Now they are the ones who are coming to aid us. What we did, the start of our republic, the early days, a lot of wealth was concentrated amongst very few individuals. So they control a lot of industry. So if you are not the son of so-and-so, you are not going to get anywhere, right? And because things are concentrated in particular areas, if I have that wealth, where will I play? In the things that I am comfortable in, and I'll try to, as much as possible, keep the wealth within the family. What does that do? It creates a chokehold. And it does not release resources to areas that are needed. And that is why the bottom-up economic model really changes everything. Now, when we have all these resources go to different industries, then it becomes totally different. If you look at the growth of China, it was very intentional. Although it's centrally controlled, every province and every town was given mandates by the national government on the way they are supposed to do. And they established particular industries in particular areas. And the national government, its role was to make sure that they create resources and conducive environments for them to thrive in. Are all the things that they did working well? Absolutely not. Some areas they created bubbles and it becomes a disaster. On other areas, they've done very well. If you look at things like manufacturing, a country like Korea, a lot of people, we have Samsung and Samsung phones, they are Koreans. And we drive Hyundai vehicles, they are they are Koreans. And if you look at where they started, it's not because there are any difference. It's because the government did things intentionally. Right? Mm-hmm. We started with our Konza Park, but we left it hanging.
By the way, did it go? We left it somewhere.
It's the Silicon
Valley.
No, Savannah. Mm-hmm. And you know what roams in the savannah, right? Mm-hmm. The wild animals.
I just left like that. Thank you so much, Jacob. I think that is quite insightful. Things are just starting up.
Exactly.
And along the way, we'll be able to focus on it, look at it, think like, is there something we need to change? Just to look at our economy, to build our economy, build Kenya, and we look forward for what we were promised during campaigns, be actualized on the ground. But they never say vitu kwa ground is different. So the politicians, the leaders, they talk big things during campaigns. And right now, this campaigns are behind us. Now to get the things done is right now.
Absolutely. And I hope as a country, this time the opposition remains the opposition, to keep check on the government, to make sure they're doing the right thing, and the government focus on the development. And the most important thing in Kenya, I think that we should also do is the way we communicate. The government should communicate very clearly its policies to the public, so that everyone understands clearly what the government is doing, so that the young people, we're producing close to 500,000 young people every year, they can look at those opportunities and see where they can tap in as well. It's not what, as John F. Kennedy said, it's not what the country can do for you, it's what you can do for the country. And for us, that is what we should be looking at doing right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as we wrap it up, Jacob, maybe our final thoughts. Going forward, and what do we need to know? What do we need to understand? You mentioned we need to tighten our belts.
Yes.
How
for
tight?
the public.
For the public. They say when I tell you jump, how high?
As the public, we need to tighten our belts, and for the executive, they also need to make sure they tighten their belts, so that we are all sailing in the same boat. They shouldn't be sailing in the yacht, and for us, we are in the canoe. Absolutely not, right? We should focus on really productivity. And when we focus on productivity, we'll have more for everyone. Yeah, when your neighbor grows, you also grow.
You also grow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the key things that we should look at as a nation is, if I criticize you, I don't like you. And if that is the thing, if I criticize you, just be aware that I like you as well. On the other hand, the criticism should be founded on facts and principle, which are not just right, but are absolutely true. Do not cook figures along the way to make it fit a certain narrative. Absolutely not. Whichever side that you are on, it should be very clear what you're saying is for the good of the nation. If we want to grow, if we want to get close even to where the Asian tigers are, we have to be truthful and be very cautious of the next 10 years. And we have an opportunity to do that.
And grow.
and grow very fast.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Thank you
Really
for having me.
Good always to have you. At least we've learned 1, 2, 3 things, on where we are supposed to start and where we are headed to.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to seeing you again, Jacob, for such an inspiration.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Ona dajita kala jigi tukinuta nen pituno tanne bora nige bertano tanne tai nangala nagobo ngalaga bottom up economic model ira tos paise itano agotos imuch kutarta itinano opportunity sana chinyoru kotos patane angne chutan tukile nyoru ngetena de Kas TV we see up next tan kolage nege ngalali en petut no tanne bora